Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Korinna, your human design and alignment guide.
And I am Skylar Shea, your personal energetic guide, intuitive cheerleader, and high-level professional coach.
And welcome to Raise Your Freak. We created this podcast because we are driven to live to our fullest potential and want to share our experiences and obsessions with the frequency-curious individuals out there. We go live every Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom, so you can be part of the conversation.
I'm so excited about all of this because I love podcasts, but I always find myself wanting to ask questions. By offering you the opportunity to join us live, this means you can ask your questions in real time.
Each week, you can expect various conversations regarding all things human frequency, as well as support to help you integrate.
We understand the importance of tending to your frequency and engaging in topics as it helps you along your path to expansion and alignment.
Our goal is to help you feel a part of a community as you navigate your journey through this lifetime.
We look forward to connecting with you every week, live at our Zoom headquarters, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I think we covered everything, Skylar.
I think so too.
Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody. Hi, Skylar. Today.
Hi.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
How are you doing today?
Right now, I'm feeling really good.
Good.
If you had asked me earlier in the week, it would have been
chaos.
And we're going to talk about that today.
Same.
Yeah, It's been a messy week.
I wonder
for the best.
I wonder if it was the whole 888 all that
And
expansion.
if I look back on previous years, I feel like August, because of this 8 portal that happens every year, August is always a weirdly messy time.
Yeah.
But also, you never really fully look back on it thinking it's that messy because things end up really evolving or expanding. So I'm excited to talk about our topic this week.
Me too.
So I'll begin by explaining that we are talking about the messy aspects of manifestation this week. We're going to use a lot of our own real life examples and bring out some of these examples where oftentimes, if you don't understand the process of manifestation, you would be thinking that this is the time to throw in the towel, give up, redirect. But in fact, it's actually what is necessary to help us to up-level, to raise our worth, to...
The messiness of manifestation, the big thing that we really want to make sure that everyone understands is, first and foremost, as we've discussed in our prior podcast episodes, especially the one about manifestation, this is all about your frequency matching whatever it is that you're calling in. So whether it's abundance, it's a new relationship, it's a new home, it's a new job, whatever the case may be, this is all about you matching what your manifestation is. So if you're thinking, I want to call in abundance, and you don't feel worthy enough, that is not a match. When you call something in, let's use abundance, because who doesn't love money? Who doesn't always want more money to pay bills? When you're calling it in and your energy is saying, ooh, and there's shadows there and there's darkness there. And again, we went through all of these already through our podcast. So definitely, because we're a part of a series, go take a look, start at All Things Manifestation and go from there. You have to explore these things because you're not going to be an energetic match. Here's the thing. The universe is always looking and always sees your highest timeline. It always sees your potential. Remember, universe is the frequency of unconditional love. There is no God in the sky holding scales and a rod saying, nope, you do not pass. You're not good enough. This is your highest timeline, and it sees it. And when you start on this path and when you wake up and you see what's going on, the universe gets excited and wants to support you and wants to help move you to that timeline. We are love and abundance. That is what our souls are made out of. It is through the human experience where we are meant to grow, learn, and expand that we have to then get to that timeline. We have to get to that level. But that involves, unfortunately, doing the work. It involves us having to take a look at shadows, having to do these things. So if we're not doing them, or if we still have hesitations vibrationally to abundance, that's when tests, that's when triggers, that's when maybe you feel a little ill. It's because your energy needs to move to that energy. The universe isn't punishing you. I want to make that very clear. The universe is actually behind you, supporting you, moving you up towards that timeline. So you become a match to whatever it is that you're calling in. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think what we're about to talk about will explain this in much more detail, but basically the best way to support yourself through these messier periods, which we'll break down and specifically, is to remember or have this mindset shift that the universe is constantly working for you, not against you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not, yes, it's an optimistic way of thinking, but it's also a way to ensure that you maintain a vibrational frequency that allows you to not be missing the opportunities that are helping you to expand.
Yeah.
This episode before, but there was a situation in where my debit card wasn't working and it was unexplained, but there was like 3 different places it wasn't working. It turned out to be a more like global issue. But I acknowledged what was like going on vibrationally in me, which was like, oh my God, I have no money, which is not even true. And immediately I like flipped that script to say, oh, like everything's working out for me. Money comes to me easily and effortlessly. And so I didn't even let myself go through that stress response of, oh, or maybe I've been hacked, or maybe this, or maybe that. But when bad things are happening to us, they are happening to us for a few different reasons, to help redirect us, to help us up level. It's always to help us up level. It always is. And so if we can start seeing it like that, then we can move through it so much easier.
Yeah. So you sent me, I think this is a good time to bring it up.
Yeah.
You sent me this morning, the law is a law of assumption.
Yeah.
So it's this idea of, instead of saying like, why do all these bad things always happen to me? Especially when you're on this path of like really trying to manifest all of these things. Why do things always happen to me? And in this reel that Skylar sent me, she's used the law of assumption. So anytime something bad happens, always view it, oh, this is a redirection. This is meant to happen. I need to be redirected. Instead of falling into the victimhood, go into empowerment. Be like, oh, wow, this just brought me a ton of clarity. Thank you. Even the especially challenging things. Because again, we aren't gifted with the foresight of seeing down the road. We don't know it. The universe does, but we don't. So we really need to trust that we are being guided there. And we just have to follow along. We just have to honestly surrender. We really have to surrender into especially the hard and sticky times, because we don't see that, we don't have the clarity in that moment, but it's going to come and you're going to see it every single time. Every single time you're going to receive that clarity.
So we've broken down a few different aspect of messiness to manifestation to really help. So we're going to go through them in our own examples, but to help you to understand like when this is happening, to be able to jump faster into that law of assumption space of, oh, this is working out for me and this is why I'm experiencing this right now. So maybe we should just go through. So I'll explain them very quickly and then we'll both talk about our own examples. So one is like the body's process. And this is often, in my opinion, at least, when the manifestation's like right around the corner, or when your body physically needs to actually up level, your identity needs to start shifting and changing. And this is like almost a detoxification period.
Yeah.
And so it's been described or called the Ascension Flu. And essentially, that's exactly what you are hearing. It's like ascending and you're getting like flu-like symptoms because of it. And you have a really good example of this.
Which one? A little bit of a backstory. I am Aries sun. And back in April, we had the solar eclipse in Aries. That morning of the solar eclipse, I woke up and I had incredible heart palpitations. It felt like anxiety on crack is what it really felt like. And then I started to have slowly a mental breakdown. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I thought I was going crazy. I was like not feeling well. I barely could eat. It was really challenging and I was so confused. And fortunately, it was also our girlfriend's birthday that day, to a point that I didn't think I was going to even be able to go because I was so head in the clouds. I was so confused. I was so panicky. I felt like there's no way that I could even drive. And to me, that has always become that alone. When I feel like I can't drive, then I know that I'm experiencing something very energetic. I'm experiencing an energetic up level because it's happened a few times. And fortunately, I got incredible insight through Skylar because I did end up being able to go. And you were able to beautifully reflect to me exactly what was going on. And then just even that understanding that gave me such a sense of peace. Other things that I find that'll happen is I lose my appetite or I get food aversions. Like the past 2 or 3 days, my appetite has gone way down. I know that I'm calling in something really big right now in my life. And that's also something that I experience. A lot of sleep or not enough sleep, you're waking up at random times is also basically you have
Exhaustion.
exhaustion. Yeah. Me, it's always exhaustion. I'll usually wake up at random points in the night, but I sleep a lot. Basically, it feels like flu-like symptoms, but you don't have a virus. You can feel like a head cold, but it doesn't, nothing manifests from it. You just feel stuffy, you feel unclear.
And generally it's like unexplained for the most part.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have kids and stuff, like it's inevitable. There's always people around you that are sick. But for the most part, it's usually like in the summer or at times when you're just like, oh, weird. Like no one else around me sick. What's going on? Or maybe there is a few of you up leveling at the same time. That's all feeling a bit off or wonky. But you nailed it with this concept of it's not virus like it's not like there's not. You just know.
But the thing is, keep in mind, this is going to happen when you're calling in something that you're not an energetic match to yet.
Yeah.
So when you're on this path of exploration, of growth, of expansion, that's when you're really going to feel it. Knowing that, especially like when your head is in the clouds a lot, grounding is so important. So literally go lie down on the ground. So yesterday, that's what I did for 2.5 hours. I laid on earth because I was feeling so out of it. I was so unclear. I was really struggling. I had very little appetite. And so I just spent time on Mother Earth. And it honestly, it really does help.
And just a reminder too, the body portal is a portal. Like our physical body is always communicating with us. And so if there is something that we are not aware of or not seeing yet, or maybe we're not listening to something, like often the body will eventually take over and start communicating with you. And I work with clients a lot in this and helping them to understand why like they get repetitive headaches or why they have low back pain and understanding the emotional components that are connected to it. So often with this Ascension Flu, for instance, it's likely that you just need to slow down and listen to the next step or hear the next step. And so your body goes through a detoxification process.
Remember, we have our energetic body, we have our emotional body, we have our mental body, we have our physical body. And so everything manifests through the physical body. So when you're holding on to stress, when you're holding on to shadows, when you're holding on to limiting beliefs, when you're holding on to anger, sadness, and you're not moving that energy through, it's going to manifest through the physical body. So that's why you'll experience ascension through the physical body.
It's helping to gain our attention.
Yeah.
So the next aspect of messiness that comes through, and these are not necessarily in specific order, and you're not necessarily going to always experience all of these. Maybe you will experience them all, but it's also very much more nuanced. And so we're just picking up on the ones that for us, we experience most often, most regularly, and that are talked about. So the ones that we help people through as well in ways too. And so the next one is this concept that I believe would have been coined probably by Lacey Phillips.
I think so,
from To Be Magnetic. And she has an awesome podcast called The Expanded Podcast. And she talks all about the neuroscience of manifestation and the energetics behind manifestation. And so this concept is called, or she calls, the magic dark. And so it's that idea of, again, it's just before the manifestation lands in, there's this quiet period. And so you've been taking the action steps, you've been shifting your energy around, you feel like it's so close, but there's nothing happening. And you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And in my opinion, this is when you're actually supposed to get into receptive mode. This
Love
is
it.
when you're supposed to lean further into your feminine. This is when you're supposed to really gain greater trust that you were meant for this, that this is meant for you. Haley Bowler Cook, who is a colleague of yours and has been a mentor of mine before, well, for both of us, explains this period in a way to where if you don't feel like things are happening, this is actually generally when the most momentum is happening. And what slows us down the most is the constant looking around and waiting and not waiting, but the looking and what can I do next?
Where
What can I
is
do
it?
next? And instead, we're supposed to just lean back and trust further. And then maybe another idea comes in, or maybe it's just a waiting period. Maybe it's not up to us, the timeline of when this lands. And yeah, I can definitely acknowledge this in many times of my life, especially if I'm calling in new clients or
Yeah.
creating a new offering of some sort. Usually there's like this like slow period or quiet period, and then it starts building momentum and starts picking up. And it's me needing to trust that process, trust in my own confidence, build my own confidence up even. What I find most helpful for me in these periods is doing meditations around manifestation or balancing my chakras and getting that understanding of like, where do I feel this dysregularity? Where do I feel the resistance or fear that comes through? What is it telling me? And being able to just, again, often at this point, it's more maybe the emotions that come up, not necessarily the physical aspects that come up, but the emotions or the mind or the beliefs telling you you're not worthy enough, you're not enough. So what does that mean? Are there action steps your ego is trying to get you to do to try to make you ready for this when in reality, because it's like there's just like this cricket period, that's just when you need to trust the process even more.
So there's two resources that I want to share with you guys, especially with when it comes to the receptive mode and like this area of our life. First of all, go and listen to our podcast last week where we talk about the yin and the yang, the balancing of the masculine and feminine. If you're like, I don't understand, what do you mean lean into the feminine? Go listen to that. And if you are still curious and you're like, ooh, I feel like I really need some help and some support, I think we should shout out our girlfriend, our dear friend, Samantha Pike. She has a program called the Receptive Mode that teaches you how to really lean into that feminine. So then that way, whenever you're experiencing this magic jark or just every single day of your entire life, because that's such a beautiful space to live in, a space of receiving from the universe. That's what the universe wants us to do so badly. It wants us to like be open and be willing. Definitely check her out as well.
Yeah, definitely. With her program too, what's so beautiful about it is most of us are hyper in our masculine all the time in that action stance, that do space. And we don't even know how to, it feels so unfamiliar to be in that receptive mode. It feels so unsafe to be in that receptive mode that we end up oftentimes like shutting out opportunities or missing the mark on the direction we're meant to be taking because we're not leaning back to listen to ourselves. And so her program is such a genius one for those that know and acknowledge, oh, I do not know how to be receptive. I do not know how to trust the process. I do not know how to lean into my feminine.
We'll link her Instagram in the show notes.
Okay, so then the next topic or aspect is like tests and challenges.
Yes.
And this one is very true to me for right now in my experience in life. And so it's those aspects or those times in which, again, like you feel like everything's not working out, that you're like, what's the point of this? What the heck? And when you allow yourself to move into that stress and that dysregulation, it starts slowing the momentum down. It starts slowing things down. So if you can allow yourself to trust that it's all working out. And so there's a couple aspects to the tests or the challenges. So I'll explain my personal one and then I'll explain another variation of it. So personally, I've been definitely calling in greater amounts of money for about the last 12 days. I've been doing stuff on the Insight Timer. I have this coaching program that I offer or that I paid for before, and she has some really good mindset meditations on there. around bringing in greater wealth, bringing in greater amounts of money and finance, and just regulating myself around my finances to go into another space for myself. It's been feeling really good. And then this week, funny enough, Korinna messages me on Tuesday and is like, hey, I'm just getting back from the cottage and I have this email. And basically, we learned to find out that my PayPal has been hacked. As a result of that, my checkings account was also compromised and my credit card wasn't, but it almost was. So I went through a period this week where I just had to cancel everything and I had zero funds and couldn't even access them. Funny enough that I was already bringing this up. That was a deep rooted fear of mine when I was a child that has resurfaced before. So when it resurfaced at this point, I spent a few hours trying to talk to PayPal. And as a disclaimer, like if you use PayPal, don't. It's so bad. From
Sorry,
like
PayPal.
yeah, sorry PayPal, but your customer service absolutely sucks. It's impossible to get a hold of anyone. And it's supposed to be a really secure site to be transferring money, yet that is not the experience I have had. So anyway, side note on that, but I never really was overly worried or dysregulated about it. There was like my checkings account was compromised but the fraud alert came out right away. Everything was really great about it. And at certain points in my life, I would have been like, what the fuck? How is this all happening right now when for the last 2 weeks, all I've been doing is try to manifest more money. And this is something that's like totally creating a dysregulation around money for me. But instead, like how I see it and how I understand it is, oh, I'm trying to bring in more money. I need to get my security set to a place that it is going to ensure that my money is in a safe space.
Totally.
Like it's basically helping me to redefine my foundation. And what's also been really cool is everything on my credit cards or my debit cards that has been coming out as automatic payments for my business. It's obvious to me like, oh, I need to start separating my personal from my business account. My accountant's been telling me to do it for years. And now it's a realization of, oh, this is an up level that the universe is like forcing me to do so that I'm creating the space.
Especially if you're going to call in more
to
money.
come in.
So then that way, come tax time, it's not this kerfuffle. It's clear. Especially when you're dealing with like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And so the way that I have had it set up for the last few years, I acknowledge that the universe is, no, like you can't have it like this anymore. That's too small. You need to refocus this and reshift this. This all needed to happen in order for me to like push my button to gear. I really see it as the universe being like the parent in this situation. We're going to show you a consequence that you can get your shit together.
And it forces you to look at your finances so then you are prepared. And that's again, what I'm saying is that the universe sees your highest timeline. It's like you need to be well equipped for what's about to happen and you're not there yet. Another example of tests is so say you're calling in a new job and something might come around that's attractive. Maybe it's decent money, but it's not quite something that you're passionate about.
It has every box except for
one or two. Yeah, exactly. Are you going to take it or are you not? A couple of months ago, I was really trying to figure out, okay, what's my next move? Do I double down and do I really focus on my business or do I get a part-time job? And I really didn't quite know what to do, but I literally had a conversation with the universe and said, I need your support. I need you to guide me. And a position that came along was very attractive. Basically, I would have a lot of autonomy, but there was a couple things. One, it is about a half-hour drive from where I lived, and that's not really what I want to do. And two, it's not actually my passion. The restaurant industry is great. The money would be there, everything, but it wasn't actually my passion. And the moment that I said no to it, half an hour later, I received a call from Haley Buller Cook to come on and be an uplift lifestyle facilitator with her. That energetic switch was the exact switch that needed. And then I ended up having such a beautiful month of June with her. So
What's also so cool and crazy about this timeline that I know for you from that manifestation perspective. So remember when you were talking about the April 8th and the Ascension flu that you were feeling? And if you you did what you needed to do during the day to support yourself, to ground yourself. So you got into the space and energy to be able to come to that dinner Haley was at. And that dinner, Haley got to know you a lot better. And I would imagine that through that dinner, that gave her the confidence and and awareness that you were the right person for her to bring into.
Which is funny because I was not my best self that day.
No, but you were your truest.
I was my truest self.
Authentic self. You were, and like within conversation with girlfriends, and one of our other girlfriends was going through something big at that time. You do what you do best of helping to explain and guide what people are going through their human design. And I don't even know, but I know that you were definitely bringing that up at points sometimes because that's just who you are and what you do. And it's, of course, it wasn't actually like an interview, but in a way, it was like aspect of how the universe puts these opportunities in our laps. And you could have just been like, oh, the universe hates me today. I feel sick. I'm shutting down. I'm not doing anything. Instead, you're like, oh, what does my body need right now? And then by the time it came around to dinner, it was like, oh, I'm feeling good to go. Like that actually feels really good for me.
And so that's the thing too, is that when we experience these things and we resist it and we don't surrender into it, then it manifests more into more physical forms. So it's really important that when we are experiencing these challenging times, that one, we don't gaslight ourselves, we honor what it is, and we allow the energy through, whether that's through crying, through reading, through or journaling, through lying down on the grass, through eating grounding foods, whatever it is. This is the moment where you have to listen to your body. What is your body crying out for? What is it crying out for?
And another thing, sometimes with this concept of tests, and it's funny, there's someone I know that she hates this perspective of tests. She hates the wording, but it doesn't mean that the manifestation, if you don't pass this test, you're not going to receive the manifestation. It's just, okay, then you're going to have an experience to help you to potentially up level more. You'll choose that job that's not fully aligned for you. You'll get there for 3 weeks and realize, oh, this is absolutely not working for you. Or you'll say yes to it. Then all of a sudden you'll start feeling ill and sick and, oh, this is actually not meant for me. So you'll just receive the wisdom later on. And so just getting clarity, though, if you know that this is an aspect and this exists, you can have that idea of, oh, is this a test? Is this really valuing my highest worth by saying yes to this? What is the universe trying to teach me of how to move through this right now? If there's a lot of things that are out of your control, what are you going to do? Are you going to just fight that and say, oh, everything's ruined? Why is this happening to me? Or are you going to allow yourself to have a little bit of compassion and move through it with, ooh, there's an up level coming here. I can't wait to understand it or see it.
The universe, it's always going in your favor. It sees your highest timeline and it wants to help you there. And if you're asking and saying, I want to get there, you need to be open to what's going to happen. And sometimes it's going to feel a little bit sticky, especially if you still have self-limiting beliefs, if you still have some shadows, especially if you're calling in love. That's another great example of what are the blocks from actually you being completely open to receive the love that you desire and that you deserve. Where are you blocking yourself? And sometimes you can't necessarily see that within yourself. So the universe brings you tests. And to help you move you into that space of what you what you actually deserve.
So let's talk now about some of the things that we do specifically to help us through these messy moments of manifestation.
Love it. Do you want to start?
Sure. So lately, especially with the calling in of more money and more abundance, meditations have been really helpful. And so a free app even that is amazing is the Insight Timer app, and using it to listen to a meditation around, so whatever you're calling in, like if it's abundance, if it's love, like they have so many different free meditations, which are awesome. And ones sometimes even specifically for sleep. And so My favorite is to listen before bed and as I'm just waking up, because that's when we're in our most like theta and alpha states where our neural pathways are going to really be moving and listening in. And on the insight timer, too, something that I've been playing with a little bit more is the meditations that offer, shoot, what's it called? It's like voice, light codes. Have you heard of this? Like,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so it's called light
Okay.
codes, and so you can be like, light codes for manifestation or
Interesting.
Google it. And really what light codes are, it's like people using their voices and channeling energy through their voice. And I find it personally super powerful.
Yeah.
And there's Reiki ones too that are also really powerful. And you can start feeling the shifts in your vibration moving. For myself too, really checking in with my chakra system.
Yeah.
And I find that to be really helpful, like being able to know and read chakras and
Yeah.
be able to read them for myself. So I can see which ones are blocked
Yeah.
to then
Yeah.
be able to support and help me. And we have a little thing that we're going to do at the end today.
I really love listening to binaural beats
Mm,
or
mm.
frequency.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm really struggling, I'll fall asleep to it because with headphones in, which is the ideal way to listen to binaural beats because we're talking about frequency, we're talking about energy. And so it really helps your energy shift and move. You can find ones, I use them for focus when I really want to focus. You can find them for creativity, you can find them for expansion. And there's different hertz and frequency hertz that you can use. So I really find that really useful as well.
Yeah, and getting out of my head and
Yeah.
into my heart and my body.
Yeah.
So whether that's through like physical movement or yoga or even like in the morning at the beginning of the day before I even get out of bed, just like tapping into my heart space, like holding a hand over my heart and being like, what do you need today? What do you want today? And so yesterday, for instance, I believe it was yesterday, the word that came through was space. Like you need space today. And actually, it was on Wednesday that was the case. And what's beautiful about that is that was the day after I realized I was hacked, and I still haven't been able to communicate with PayPal. And so I could have spent half the day probably trying to chat with PayPal, trying to sort things out. Meanwhile, that would have like completely dysregulated my energy. It would have completely frustrated me. There was no real reason I needed to actually talk to PayPal. Like my accounts were canceled, everything was done. So when the heart said space, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I would have not done that. Like I would have definitely been like, oh, like the responsible thing to do is call PayPal, get this sorted as fast as possible because if I don't, like catastrophe could happen. But then when I heard that like call for space, I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. And sure enough, like I went down to the water. There was a couple opportunities to hang out with friends that I might have taken that opportunity, but I was give yourself space. And what was cool too is that the TD fraud stuff was taking care of itself. And so I also then, by the time I got back to my phone, I saw that the money that had been taken from my checkings account was already put back in my checkings account. So it was like, oh, truly, there was nothing else I really could have done today to expedite that. So by just taking the space for myself, it also allowed me to get clarity on a few business things that I wanted to move forward in and wanted to do that I wouldn't have had the space for that clarity.
Another thing too is especially when you're experiencing the more challenging times, the ego likes to just amplify, especially when you're really doing a lot of work on yourself and you're looking at your shadows and you're bringing them to light and you're working through them and you're creating new neural pathways to move towards your higher timeline. The ego will just love to keep us small. So noticing when the ego comes up and says, what, this is impossible. You're never going to be able to get this. Why? You're not good enough for this. Notice it and say thank you, and then just tell it politely to shut up.
Yeah.
So notice when it's happening. And it's hard because this internal dialogue can be sometimes the loudest voice within us. Recognizing it, but telling it really to go away is really important too.
I would say this is why I created the Transmission Club was because of having, so every week we do a different transmission on whatever I feel the group needs. And often it has to do with these bigger themes or topics that we all go through: self-sabotage, people pleasing, not listening to the heart, getting into the heart. Last week's was all about helping the body with expansion and helping you to actually ground, because when we are expanding, sometimes we're feeling the clouds, we're feeling unclear, we're feeling the confusion, and we're like, how do I feel like I'm expanding and contracting all at the same time? So being able to create and have these hypnotic transmissions, which has the energy healing to support the energy body and the hypnosis to support the neural pathways. And being able, I use them too. I come back to the ones that I feel like I need at the times when it's okay, this thought pattern is really strong right now. Let me grab this meditation to help shift this, to change this so that I don't move into that vibrational frequency, so that I can shift out of it.
Yeah. Another thing too is, especially when you're feeling like very head in the clouds, one thing that we that I actually received a reminder of a few years ago, and I think it's really important to remind everyone out there, is when we're doing the work, sometimes we spend a little bit too much time in our crown chakra, right? Because it's beautiful up there. Everything is lovely. Meditating is so beautiful, but it's crown chakra. Expanding is such a beautiful thing. So obviously, we want to be there. Obviously, we want to live there. Things feel a little bit more sparkly up there. However, we are human beings in this incarnation, our meat suit, right? So we have to remember we need a healthy balance. Like anything else in this world, we can become addicted to the spirituality. We can become addicted to living in our crown space. So we need to bring that back down to earth and get grounded and enjoy earthly things too. So where can you enjoy that divineness on planet Earth? So that's why a lot of grounding things are really important. Getting your feet in Mother Nature, especially this time of year, walking out in nature, enjoying the beauty, the simplicity of life that's around you is really important to get you grounded.
And that sense of play as well, like bring in what brings you joy and what brings you play. And that's why you're having a hard time with the clarity, because again, like you're too in your head. You need to be in your body. You need to be back in your heart space. And so by grounding, by going and playing, by getting almost distracted in a way, creates a lot more momentum than we would think. Like sometimes we need to step away in order for that momentum to occur. Okay. I did this beforehand. I've used this deck a couple times. If you are just watching this for the first time, welcome. One thing Korinna and I love to do at the end of these is pull a tarot card or an oracle card to help with just guidance on how to support you at this time with the topic that we have been discussing. And so I thought it was really important to focus on like the energy center or the chakra that might need most support. So when I'm looking for chakra wisdom, I loved using this deck here. It's a really good one. It's the Chakra Wisdom Tarot. And so I already pulled the card for this just because it takes a little bit of steps to pull the card. And so I did this at the beginning of the session. So it's the sacral chakra that we are being suggested to consider. The sacral chakra often is about our emotions and how our emotions are helping us to flow or potentially restricting us from flow. There's lots of other aspects to the sacral chakra, but that's the message for this card. And this card was reversed, but it is the Two of Swords reversed like this. And I'll read the actual description, but my interpretation of this is it's like these swords have a duality, your duality of your flow and your duality of your resistance, or your duality of your masculine and your feminine. And what is reminding us, especially with the upside down version of it, is that maybe we've been leaning too much into the resistance, the fear, the stress of what it is that you are calling in. And it's asking you to take that sword and pull it out of your energy field a little bit. It doesn't have to be so intense. You can trust in your process a little bit more. So let me share. It's the card of seductive restriction. So because it was reversed, it's feelings that you may have been feeling lately, like lopsided, feeling of caution, feeling of imposter syndrome. The indication here is that resistance can overshadow what we are actually for. What are you willing to stand for emotionally? So there's a little meditation suggestion here. So just close your eyes for a second. And breathe in a couple deep breaths to ground yourself. When we choose to turn our back on our emotions, we stay safe from the possibility of feeling them. A lower, slower vibrational frequency creates temporary safety. When you are ready, energetically turn toward the feminine power to ignite your dreams again. You may never be ready to change the status quo, but you may need to take action anyway.
Kudos for you for doing the work on yourself,
Mhm.
because what you're doing is as you're moving, you're expanding. And sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes it's hard to take a look at shadows. Sometimes it's hard to take a look at who you are. We're so gifted because we have so many modalities out there that can really help support us.
Mhm.
Human design, Reiki. There's so much out there that we can use, astrology that we can use to help us and guide us to really discovering who we are. Because the more we learn about who we are, the more awake we become to what is out there. And the more we move towards our higher self. Remember, that's what the universe wants at the end of the day. It wants us to evolve. Evolution is a part of our path, part of what Earth is, part of what the universe is. So you are constantly evolving. And sometimes it's a little bit messy, but at the end, it's always beautiful. Like after the flu or after these things happen, there's always a lightness that you're going to feel. And each time you're going to be in that energy and it's going to feel really beautiful. It's going to be really peaceful. So it's keep that in mind every time that you go through these up levels is that
Mhm.
use the law of assumption. This is for your highest good.
And just like to close, and this is something that I always share with my Reiki students because the attunement process, the 21 days after an attunement, that is a huge
Mhm.
energetic ascension for people, whether they realize that or not. And so I should have started off with this, but I'm so familiar with helping guide people through ascensions because of their Reiki attunements. And so one thing that I always recommend is that like when you're in the shit or when you're in the messiness, don't feel like you have to over intellectualize it.
Yes.
The hindsight always does come with the concept of the law of assumption. All you have to do is acknowledge this is for my highest good. This is for my highest good. And then you don't have to create the negative story
Yeah.
loops or try to get like wasting your energy trying to figure out why this is happening. Get back into your body, get back into your heart, and just what's the next step being asked of your body and your heart? What's the next step? What could help you today to feel good today? What could help you today to move the needle forward? Oh, is it actually like laying in bed for a few more hours? That doesn't sound, but okay, I'm going to trust it.
Yeah.
So it's don't over intellectualize, let your heart guide the way.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.